Okay, so I did not anticipate on making this video at all, which is why I'm dressed like this, and it's cold in my house, which is why I've got a big sweatshirt on. Usually whenever I'm here by myself, I'll just turn up the AC so that it's not cold in here, but my son and my husband are here, so I'm not gonna do that because then they're gonna get too hot. So I just put on a sweatshirt. Anyway, yeah, my background, a little messy, ring light over there, my little slant board right there. I love that thing. It's really good. I just bought it recently, and it helps to like stretch out the backs of your knees and like your Achilles tendon and stuff like that. And it's just really good for just stretching out those ligaments. And I've noticed, you know, something that I notice is that when I watch older people walk, I did a lot of people watching, you know, at the airports and stuff like that. But I've noticed, and I've said this in the past, like when I see older people walk, they walk with almost bent knees. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm trying to keep everything nice and stretched out. Anyway, I'm just gonna put on some makeup. I started putting on some makeup, like some concealer and some eyebrow stuff, because I wasn't planning on making a video. But then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys a story about our Uber driver over the weekend. I actually just got back from being out of town. I went to Arizona for the weekend. And there were so many things that they're just kind of like, I felt like it was like a Griswold, what is that? Like National Lampoon's Vacation kind of trip. But anyway, I went to my niece's wedding, and y'all, it was the most beautiful wedding I think I've ever been to, ever. It was in Arizona, it was outdoors, but surprisingly, you know, it was in the evening, so it was really nice. It was so beautiful. It was just like a perfect picturesque wedding. My niece is so beautiful. She's actually the first grandchild from all the grandchildren that my parents have, who got married, and she's 22 years old. She's very young, but her and her husband, oh my God, they're the cutest little couple. I loved meeting his side of the family. I loved seeing my younger sister's in-laws and everybody from her husband's side of the family. I have not seen them in 25 years, since her wedding to him. And so anyway, it was just, oh my God, it was such an awesome weekend. But we did have like an Uber driver from hell. And so that's what this video, I'm just gonna chit chat with you and tell you all about that, you know, Uber experience while I put on makeup. I'm not gonna really be concentrating on like the makeup that I'm wearing. I'll show you and I'll list it in my description box, but you know, I'm not gonna be really concentrating on it. Just so you know, this is what I have on for, I haven't used this and I can already tell. I'm not crazy about it. I can see like some creasing already. It is the Retouch and Erase by Milani. So it's not that great. Whenever I'm just home on the weekends, I will just use all the stuff that I don't typically reach for, and because I don't want to waste the stuff that I really love, you know what I mean? And I'm just going to be home all day, but I still like to put on makeup every day. So yeah, let's jump in and let's just put on some makeup, and I'm gonna chit chat with you. So I'm going to use this right here by Perfusion Cosmetics. I don't know if you can see that because there's kind of a glare, but these are the colors. It's called Moonstone. So anyway, we went to my niece's wedding, and we're just gonna skip to the part where we're already at the wedding, and the wedding is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's at a winery it's called Florenceville, and there's just not a lot of traffic. It's like highway all the way there. And we decided that we were going to go ahead and take an Uber just so that everybody could have a good time, because I had actually rented a car. It was such a waste of money because we never used it, but we used it like once to go to the grocery store, and it was like $350 just to rent it. And we used it once to go to the grocery store and once to go to my sister's house, who was right around the corner. I literally didn't even have to fill it up. It was still on above full whenever I returned it. So it was just a giant waste of money. I'm never gonna do that again. So the people that were gonna be driving home in the Uber was gonna be me, my daughter, her boyfriend, my dad, my aunt, and my mom. And my husband and my son did not go to the wedding because my son has already started school, and he is autistic, and he, you know, we didn't want to get him behind. We didn't want him to get behind. And so he would have had to miss 2 days of school, and we just didn't want to do that. So anyway, we arranged for an Uber to come pick us up. Now, one thing that I did want to say, if feel like I'm already messing up a little bit. One thing that I did want to say is that we had very little options when it came to an Uber because it was out in the middle of nowhere and there's just not a lot of people, you know, going from there to Scottsdale and back. And that's how long the trip was. It was about an hour and 20-minute trip. Yeah, I feel like this makeup application is going to be a little crazy, but we're going to try it. So anyway, the Uber gets there, and first thing, she parks in the back instead of the front, which, you know, maybe she wasn't familiar with the area. I don't know. But anyway, we had to go out the back somehow and find her. And so, even though we were waiting out front. So anyway, first thing, we get into her car, and it's an SUV, but it's kind of like a beat up Suburban. And we're like, okay, you know, we had, like I said, we had very little options. And the first two that we chose first, like, it disappeared or something. I can't remember what exactly happened, but we ended up kind of by default getting stuck with her. And although she had a pretty good rating, like it was a 4.9 rating. So we all climb into the car, and my daughter and her boyfriend are in the very back because they're the youngest and they can crawl back there. And then me and my dad and my aunt Becky are in the middle seats, and then my mom is up front. Well, the woman that was the driver, I would say she was like in her 60s. And right away, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be, I'm already very hesitant about taking Ubers anyway, just because, you know, you have to trust them also, you know, with your life and your children's lives and everything else. And so I was already a little bit hesitant, but we all wanted to be able to have a good time at this wedding, but we all wanted to get home safely, you know. So anyway, right when we get in, you know, she starts striking up some conversation with my mom, and she lets her know that she's a grandma. And my mom, you know, they were, you know, just sharing like, oh, I'm a grandma too. How many grandkids do you have? Stuff like that. So right away I was thinking, oh, this is going to be nice. She's just an older lady. She kind of had a beat up car. My mom said that there was like trash on the floorboard in the front. There wasn't really trash in the back, but she said there was like empty bags of food and stuff like that, like chips and stuff on the floorboard. And that in the middle console, there was just a can of like wet cigarettes. And I'm like, ooh, you know, gross. And I could tell like right when we got in, like it wasn't like a fresh smell and stuff, but I was like, just get us home safely, you know? So anyway, we start driving, and let's see, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing here so far. So anyway, we start driving, and we're driving quite a ways, and I was starting to get a little bit relaxed, and you know, everybody was starting to just kind of like relax, and you know, we had a fun-filled day and evening. But then I thought to myself, no, I want to keep an eye on her to make sure she's driving okay, you know, because like I said, it was a lot of highway roads, and that really makes me nervous because you really don't have anything separating you from having a head-on collision besides your safety in driving, you know. I'm gonna put something a little darker up here just so it's not so, ooh, that might be a little too dark. Not really. Anyway, we're driving along, and all of a sudden it feels like she's jerking the steering wheel from like left to right, left to right, left to right. But it was almost like she was trying to touch each line. And all of us were kind of like swaying back and forth. And I was like, whoa, no, what the heck was that? So she told my mom something like, oh, you know, I don't know if my tire is bad or something. And I'm thinking, God, that is not comforting at all to have a bad tire. And we're on a stretch of highway like this. And I wanted to say something because I was so worried after she did that. It literally, I feel like it went on for about 15 seconds, which is way too long to keep going back and forth like that. And I was like, it looked like she was moving the wheel herself. So I was just like, oh my God, I want to say something. And everybody kind of knows me in my family as like the worrier. I'm always worried. I'm always looking over my shoulder. I'm always questioning people like around us and their intention or something like that. And so I was like, no, just stay quiet, just wait, you know. let's see if anything else happens. But then about like maybe 10 or 15 minutes go by, and then everything seemed kind of calm. Like we weren't too worried. It was just kind of quiet. Everybody was just kind of like relaxing and just hoping we got home safe. Well, then all of a sudden everybody was like, wow, it's hot. It's hot back here. You know, it was starting to get really hot back there, especially my daughter and her boyfriend in the back. So we started to ask her if she could turn down the AC. We're like, it's really hot back here. Is there any way that you can turn down the AC? So she starts messing with the knobs, and she's like, is it cooler? Is it cooler? And it felt like she turned on the heater, like full blast. Suddenly it was like really, really hot air just coming through. And we're like, no, ma'am, that's hot air. I think you have it on heater. Can you turn it to the AC and then turn it up? So she starts messing with the knobs again, and she's just blowing hot air back on us. So we're like, no, turn it off, please. So instead of turning it off, she cranks up the radio, like really loud. And we're like, you know, ma'am, can you please turn down the radio? You know, it's too loud. It's way too loud. So now then she turns down the radio, and then she also turns down the heater. And so now we almost have like no air blowing on us, and the radio's down, and all of a sudden, oh shoot. So now we have no air blowing on us except for a little bit of hot air because she just kind of turned it down. And my mom was trying to help find like the cooling and heating knob so that she could help us, you know, to get cool in the back seats. And then all of a sudden, again, she starts jerking the wheel. It goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we're all kind of swaying. And finally I was like, ma'am, are you okay? And then all of a sudden, my daughter's boyfriend was like, pull over right now, pull over to the next exit, pull over to the next exit. And we all start telling her like, pull over to the next exit. And she's like, I can't because my GPS says to go this way. And we're like, we don't care. We want to get out. We want you to pull over to the next exit. Y'all, we're in the middle of nowhere. She pulls over to this exit. There happens to be this building out in the middle of nowhere. And she does let us out. And it's such a scary feeling because she had already skipped like 2 exits, and we're like, the next one, let us out. And at this point, you're just in fear for your life. Like you're at somebody else's mercy. You're like, we were just hoping, please just let us out of this car. You know, we didn't want to upset her, you know, because there was just so many things going through, I think, all of our heads. So she does let us out. And as she's letting us out, she's just kind of apologizing to us. She's just saying, I'm so sorry. That's it. She's not giving any explanation. She's not saying anything else. She lets us out of the car and she just drives off. So we're literally like in the middle of a parking lot near a building, and we're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this just happened. Me, my mom, my dad, my aunt, my daughter, and her boyfriend are just all sitting there. My daughter's boyfriend was just such a hero, like the whole weekend. He's only 20 years old too. But you know, all the rest of us are pretty old that are in the car. None of us really take Ubers. I have only called an Uber once in my life ever. And that was when I went to Florida with Venus. And it was very scary because I didn't know anything about Ubers or all that stuff. So my daughter and him take Ubers all the time. So we made her and him kind of responsible for getting the Ubers. And of course I paid for everything. And so anyway, in one hand, he has my daughter's phone and he's canceling our Uber and placing a complaint. And then in his other hand, he's getting a new Uber for us. And then the next one was just so nice, AC, really nice car, you know, everything. And he got us to our destination, to our Airbnb. By the way, we like stayed in a mansion, like literally it was an Airbnb, but it was 5 bedroom, 4.5 bath. It was so beautiful, big giant pool with a fountain in the backyard. So awesome. So anyway, he took us back to our place, but my God, just the fact that, like I said, when you are calling an Uber, you are assuming that they're sober. And the only thing that I could think of, like whenever I told my husband the story, he's like, you know, she was probably home in, you know, the middle of nowhere, and she was probably just getting on with her night. Maybe she was having some wine or something, and then she got this call for an Uber and thought, you know, this is a pretty big ticket, you know, drive, since we're going an hour and 20 minutes. So she's probably thinking, you know what, I'm gonna go make some money, not taking into consideration that she had definitely already drank, took pills, took sleeping meds, something, because she just was not capable of driving. She was not capable of turning on the AC. Like I said, she confused like the knobs with the radio and just blared the radio. It was just very, very bizarre. You know, the most kind of disheartening thing about this whole story is that we were trying to do the responsible thing. You know, we were trying to get an Uber so that we would get there and back safely. And unfortunately, you have to trust that your Uber is on the up and up. You know, you have to trust that they want to get people there and back safely, you know, and that just wasn't the case here. As a matter of fact, also, whenever I went to Florida, I'll never forget, we had gone out to eat, me and a bunch of the other girls. One of the girls was Lisa J here on YouTube, and then there was several other influencers. We all went out to eat that evening, and we took an Uber home. When we got in that Uber, it was so obvious. Like, I mean, it was practically a billow of smoke came out of the car, and it smelled like weed really strongly in the car. And we were, you know, a very short distance from our hotel, but still, I'm like, you know, clearly he had smoked weed, no doubt. And I don't know why, like, if I'm going to, I'd much rather get in a car with somebody who'd smoked weed than somebody who drank. And I know that, I mean, that's the lesser of the two evils as far as like driving, I would think. But of course you don't want either. Like, who wants to be in a car with somebody who's done anything? That's the whole reason you're calling an Uber. This is such an awesome gloss. This is the e.l.f. lip plumping gloss. It looks like this. My God, it's so good. I always ruin my gloss tips. Y'all are gonna think this is funny because this is actually an eye pencil crayon, but I always have a very hard time finding something. I like a flesh colored nude. Like, I want my lips to look like they belong to a corpse. I'm just kidding. But so I like to really lighten it up with something like this. But it has to go over gloss. Like, you can't just put it on your lips. It'll look like eyeshadow on your lips, you know? So doesn't that look pretty? It's still like a cool toned, because this lip liner, I think this might even be an eyeliner. No, it isn't a lip liner. It's called Gone Greige, and it's 104. This is Maybelline, I think. No, yeah, Maybelline Color Sensational. And it's kind of a cool tone. And then look at this on top. It looks so pretty. Yeah. Anyway, this woman should never Uber. She should never Uber again. I mean, she literally had all of our lives in her hands. And, you know, after we were on the side of the road, I called my younger sister to let her know what had happened. And when she woke up the next morning, she was like so sad and scared, because she was like, you know, what if one of the best days of my life, which is the day your daughter gets married, what if that also ended up being one of the biggest tragedies of your life? Like, she said she envisioned herself like in the ER bawling her eyes out, because literally everybody she loved was in that car. I mean, some of the people that not every single body, but some of the people that she loved the most. Me, my dad, my mom, my aunt, my daughter. She just met her boyfriend. And that's such a scary, sad reality, because like I said, our lives were in her hands and she didn't act responsibly. And it's so sad and it's scary. You know, it's so funny because anytime I use these grays, I always like it at first. And then as the day goes on, I don't like it. And I don't know why, because it looks really, I'm looking in the viewfinder and it looks really pretty. And I feel like it brings out my eyes. But I think I'm just gonna stop there because like I said, I'm just gonna be staying home. Okay, so a little hair update, because you guys know that I've been growing out my hair, and I actually just cut it, just trimmed it like 2 days ago, because my hair was more of an angled bob, like it was longer in the front and a little bit shorter in the back, but I can't grow it out like that. I mean, this would still be considered a bob for sure, it's that length, but it has to be a little bit longer in the back and shorter in the front. Otherwise it flips out and does all this weird stuff like on my shoulders, and then that's what gets me like cutting again. So anyway, this is the length of it right now, and I've really been trying to eat for my hair and do a lot of like conditioning masks. I showed you guys those masks that my sister bought me, and I've just been religious about them. And I really want my hair to grow out very healthy. You know, it's kind of funny because I just put some blonde, a lot more blonde highlights in my hair, but I'm so particular about my hair whenever I highlight. It's the reason I started doing it in the first place, because I used to always say like, don't overlap, please don't overlap the bleach, because I didn't feel like my hair was healthy. And so I know that when I overlap, I might overlap just that much, just so that they blend, you know, and if I have to use a toner, I will. But I used to say, please don't overlap. And then I'd see them just like brushing it all on. And I'm like, it would always scare me. And I knew that my hair was not as healthy as it could be. And so I started doing my own hair. But anyway, I just saw a picture of myself the other day with really long hair. It was 2021. It was right before I started losing my hair after having COVID. And I'm like, God, it looks so good. And I don't care what anybody says. There are most women, not all women, but most women do look younger with longer hair. And I've always known that, even when I had my shorter hair. And I'm glad I had my shorter hair, because it was actually fun. And sometimes I will look back in some videos and I'm like, do I want to grow it out? Because there's a few videos, like one of them is my video about boy pretty versus girl pretty. I'm like, God, I was having such a great hair day. As a matter of fact, if it looked like that every single day, I'm not sure I would be growing it out, but I had to like style it. It's a lot of work to have shorter hair, especially if you have layers. Now, if it's all in length, I feel like it would not be more work than if it was long, you know, but I had some layers. And so that made it, I had to do some styling, you know? But anyway, unless you have like really thin hair, like if you have real thin hair, you should always just rock a bob. I feel like if it's too thin and it's long, it's not gonna do you any favors, you know? So I feel like when my hair was really thin from having lost so much of it, when I had a bob, I felt like it was perfect. And like I said, I'm glad I did it. I've always wanted to, and now I know what I look like with a bob, and I know what I look like with longer hair. Right now, I like that it's at this length, that I can put it behind my shoulders, and then you have no idea. Like it could be cascading down my back right now for all you know, but, and this could just be like shorter layers up front, you know? Anyway, so I am really, really taking care of my hair. I promise you by, I would say Thanksgiving, it'll be for sure like down to here, 100%, because my hair grows really fast. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way that I eat, but I do have a lot of protein shakes, and I take biotin, and I, you know, multivitamin, like just everything that I think is going to help me grow longer hair faster. That's what I'm doing. So this is what it looks like when it's just like brushed really straight. And I like that look also, just a really polished, it's still a bob. Like this length is still definitely a bob. It's just a little bit of a longer bob, and I like it. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate your time. I hope that you are having a fantastic weekend, and hopefully I'll see you back here next week.